Right.
Off.
So, hello everybody. This is Sam. Meet Sam. Sam is a reform councillor in the borough of Basildon. That's the one, isn't it?
Indeed.
And you cover quite a large area, don't you?
Yeah, so Basildon has around 200,000 residents within that particular borough. Yes, so
Yeah.
quite a large amount of residents that I rep. Well, not specifically my ward, but Basildon Borough as a whole represents 200,000 people.
Wow, massive. So, if you don't know, guys, Sam is working class, and basically one day, sometime this year, you decided to fill an application form in and run as a Reform UK councillor. So you stepped into politics at a time most people feel pushed out of it. What's made you decide to stand for Reform UK in the first place?
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Well, the reason why that I stood for reform in the very beginning was because I think, like many people, we see that we have these professionals who go to these universities, study politics, and these are people that we've always trusted to deliver the political agenda for us. And I think we've all seen what's happened over the last few years, where effectively the country is being run by those who necessarily don't put residents first, and there's 60, 70 million of us in the UK, and to not be represented by the people who we originally elected to represent us, put me in a position where I thought, you know what, if I don't put my hand up and represent my beliefs and what my neighbours' beliefs are and what my customers' beliefs are, I think we're going to find ourselves in a position where effectively we are, this country is being run by those who don't put the residents' priorities first. And I've been to a few reform meetings. It was the first time I'd ever signed up to anything political. I've always had that in the back of my mind that I enjoyed politics. I like to watch GB News, and obviously follow along. And it really wasn't until the last general election when we see reform achieve the MPs that they got in, that I thought, you know what, this is the party for me. And I went to some branch events, I went to some branch meetings, and the thing is, it's quite clear that we need a lot of councillors to be able to put Nigel into number 10. I mean, of course, MPs are very important as well, but the ground game, the grassroots politics, is where we're going to really have that momentum driving into 2029. Now, a lot of people are saying 2027, maybe even next year, but the most important thing is, especially with local government, is that we are doing the things, or we are representing people and the things that they see when they leave their house. So if you leave your house, you want to make sure that the streets are tidy, that crime is being looked into, and if there's any particular areas of the council where residents effectively feel that they need support with, that is really where councillors represent, especially around planning applications, licensing, so around alcohol, taxi drivers, that sort of thing as well. From a borough perspective, that is what we look after. Then obviously our members of Parliament then deliver in the House of Commons and in Parliament for the national agenda. So bringing it back to your question of how did I kind of get into it, I put my hand up, and they thought, do you know what, let's give this guy a go, and we had an incredible result in St Martin's, which is a specific ward that I represent, which is in the centre of Basildon Town Centre. So there's a small area just outside Basildon Town, well, inside Basildon Town Centre and just outside, which has around 10,000 residents inside that particular ward. And thankfully back in July, after 6 to 8 weeks of grafting, being out, canvassing, knocking on doors, leafleting, speaking to residents, I was blessed with a 45% majority, a 45% vote share on that particular by-election. And so now I find myself working within the council and representing everybody that I thought I would when I first put my hand up and said, please, can I represent my neighbours?
Okay, so going back to that, so you've sat there and you've decided you're going to fill out the form, you're going to apply to Reform UK. What then? What do you do? Because surely that's quite a, oh my God, I'm a councillor now. What's the ground? What do I do? Who's involved? Who's going to help me? Who do I get in contact with? How do I go out on the streets? How do I get all this stuff? What am I supposed to do? What happens then?
So on the evening of the election, I signed the declaration to confirm that I was accepting the role as councillor.
Yep.
and then it begins the very next day. They set up my mobile phone and they set up my email, although that took a couple of weeks. But residents want you to start delivering on action, or delivering the actions that you promised immediately. And if I'm going to be honest, the initial induction by Basildon Borough Council wasn't fantastic. I think they were very scared to see the reformer had taken such a large vote share in St Martin's, which has always been historically a Labour seat. And funnily enough, the leader of Basildon Borough Council, our friend Councillor Gavin Callaghan,
who we'll get onto later, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yes, we will get on to him.
We will get on to him. A story there with that. So yeah, but no, carry on, mate.
So because and thankfully enough, the residents of St Martin's actually put me in on a higher percentage than the leader of the council. So straight away, the Labour Party, or Basildon Labour, have already got the knives out for me. So anything that they could have done to really stop me from having a great induction or being able to get on. I mean, I'll just give you an example. It was only last week that I get an apology email from our head of elected member services to say, I'm really sorry, after 4 months, we hadn't actually signed you up to receive the council's emails or the council's press releases. Now,
so you're being excluded from the start simply because of who you are.
Correct, and the fact that Reform UK is rising so much in the polls nationally. I mean, you only have to look at it; it's ranging from 32 to 35%. And the big win that I had in St Martin's, where the council leader also won his seat at the previous May elections. For him, it was, or so much for the council, that they see the rise of reform, and by not giving me that great induction, it allows them, for me, not to start as I mean to go on, if that makes sense.
Well, it's deliberately, it's like making you ride a bike without stabilisers first, isn't it? And one thing I've always advocated for is, I believe, and because we obviously met at the Reform Conference and we had a good chat, and unfortunately the interview that we did there didn't come out, but I think this is more poignant. This is probably a better interview. But we see that it's detrimental to, they're doing everything they can to be as detrimental to you as possible, because it's very easy to then smear you as doing a bad job, when the reality is you haven't been given the tools to do the job, and you're being excluded from that process that everybody has to learn. You need a period of time, don't you? But I think people do want people to jump in straight away. But you're not a career councillor, are you? You're a businessman prior to this. You put your hand up. You wanted to represent the local people, and you need a period of time, don't you? And your 6-month period of time, it's not quite even 6 months yet, is it? But
not even yet.
Yeah, and that period of time has been pretty much restriction, condemnation, again, for who you are and who you stand with. So so it's very easy for them to then smear you as doing a bad job or being incompetent, when the reality is they don't want you there and they're hindering you as much as possible.
Of course, and I think you only have to look at the senior leadership team at the council. Now, council officers, your CEO, your monitoring officer, these are the highest public paid members of staff on the council, and they're meant to remain impartial and deliver for residents. Now, even from day one, it was very, very obvious that these people weren't going to give me it was going to be a baptism of fire, and they weren't going to give me the tools that I needed. And even down to, for example, the emails that I just referenced, it took weeks and weeks and weeks to be able to even get set up on the system to be able to respond to residents. And even there's like an online portal where residents can go on and they can put down what their problems are and what I can do for them. They weren't even being sent to me. They were being diverted to other councillors in the area. And I think to myself, for someone that's come from, and I'll just tell you a little bit about my background. I mean, at 13 years old, me and my family were homeless. We had absolutely nothing. And again, that was down to the previous Labour government. We lost our house and they gave us absolutely no support. So I've lived in hostels. I've lived in temporary accommodation. Even back in like 2007, 2008, it's even back then, it was still quite a big thing for temporary accommodation, or people in temporary accommodation, to not to get their support. So I already knew that a Labour government was already not focused on residents. They were always focused on a different agenda. So for me, when I came in day one, I'm someone that's always done this in my life. Once I have a goal, we then set the plan, and how we're going to achieve it, and then we're going to review it afterwards so that we can obviously get feedback and whatnot. But I was never given the opportunity to be able to start strongly because I was being hindered by the council on so many different occasions. And obviously, because Reform is doing so well locally, especially on social media, we're doing fantastic. Like my growth online as the Reform UK group leader in Basildon has been astronomical, because people really agreeing and understanding with what we actually represent. So focusing on family, community, and country. Those are our three pillars as Reform UK. And when you look at other parties, and we'll take Labour, for example, and you only have to look to see what Keir Starmer's doing on a national level, especially around immigration, around disability benefits, that sort of thing as well. They're trying to effectively ruin our country and make it so it's not recognisable anymore. And I'm sure you'd probably agree, Bruce, if you was to take a walk down your high street and you take a look around, you just see people that you've never seen before, and see behaviours and attitudes that really don't line up with the British values and the way that we do things. And that is one of the biggest complaints from residents, is that they don't feel safe, they don't feel heard. And when you've got someone like me, a man of the people, I'm a resident first, a councillor second, someone that's built a fantastic business locally, an award-winning business which is well known. I walk through the street even now, speaking to residents. They'll come and pull me. I mean, if I walk outside of my shop, I'll no doubt have 4 or 5 residents pull me wanting my support, because they know Reform is the party of action and the party that will deliver for residents, not only on a local basis, but on the national stage as well. And I think the polling is very telling of what the country's feeling right now. And Basildon has always been an area which has been a catalyst for national agendas. So what you see in Basildon happening is generally a reflection of what's happened on a national basis. And to see the decline, I mean, pretty much immediately last year from when Labour got in, even till now, I mean, the decline over the last 3 or 4 months since I've been a Reform councillor at Basildon Borough Council, is just doubled down even faster. The decline from them has been steered by the fact that they hate Reform, and they will do everything to try and smear Reform councillors.
And that is noticeable, and I think if people are really paying attention, I've done many videos now about the establishment, about the far right narrative, about how it exploded after the 4th of July. It's media proven, it's data scrape proven that the upturn in the brandishing of brandishing people far right has been tenfold since Labour got into power in July the 4th. And I think then that's product of Reform doing really well in the councils, and they're clap back against that, isn't it? They're trying to do everything they can to protect their establishment, and it is an establishment. And I think you experience that firsthand now, don't you? And to have someone inside seeing what the cogs and wheels of this are, that you're seeing it firsthand, that there's definitely more to this than they're losing their grip, and they don't like it, do they?
No, I think if you look into, like I said, they are losing their grip. But I'll just go back to my 3 manifesto pledges. It was to fill the shops. So we had a lot of empty shops in Basildon. It was to try and drive economic growth that way. So to fill the shops, reduce crime. I mean, we've developed a great relationship, Reform UK, with the local police and the local policing teams, because we're able just to deliver the message that residents are telling us on a daily basis. It's not very often that police get to really have a conversation with residents, because I'm getting emails every single day saying this has happened, I'm concerned about this. We can then relay that back to the police, and they're doing an amazing job and fantastic.
Because yes, and I think that's where people don't. You're the bridge, aren't you? And have you? I don't want to put you on the spot in this necessarily, but do you feel like that establishment narrative carries over to the police force as well, or you had a good experience with them? Do you feel like they're willing to come out and make these changes and do things?
Well, you know what? If you was to have asked me the day that I got elected, I would probably say that the police probably more aligned with the way that Labour are delivering their agenda, basically. But ever since my incident, I'm sure we'll come on to this a little bit later on inside this podcast, but a little bit later on, we've slowly seen the change where even local police are now saying we want Reform. We want to see someone that's going to, or a party that's going to stand up against crime and the crime that matters to residents. Because, I mean, we've got all of these. I mean, you only have to take Lucy Connolly as an example, someone who was arrested for tweets rather than the police arresting people on the streets, rather. And that's just an example of where Labour have kind of got their fingers in the pie, and they're trying to manipulate the police forces to deliver an agenda which is a bit woke. And I think ever since my recent incident, I can definitely see locally that now there's that transition period where police are saying, do you know what, we was trained. We joined a profession where we could make a difference, a real difference, especially around true crime, that I like to call it. So your shoplifting, your assaults, your murders, that sort of thing as well, because the policing teams are so stretched, even locally, they're so stretched. And you do half feel sorry for them, because you know these people are really good people with the right intentions, but their resources.
It's red tape, isn't it? It's red tape. It's an agenda that they're forced to follow, who they can and cannot side with. They're obviously challenge their leadership. They have to, and I think, yeah, you're right. They've got jobs at the end of the day. They've got jobs and families, and if they're being told to do something, they're going to follow it because they don't want to lose their job. And it's, I get that people want to stand up and say things, and we have had police officers stand up and say things. I think there was a documented incident recently of an officer standing in London who was talking to a pro-Palestine supporter and basically turned around and said, I can't remember exactly, I don't want to quote what he said because I don't want to get misquoted, but apparently he then was put under investigation by the police force for his words because it went against this agenda that they're trying to push. So do you think that's turning now? Do you think that the good people that you see inside there are saying, yeah, do you know what, we've had enough of this now, this is not what my job is, this is not what I'm being paid to do, this is not what the taxpayer's paying for, we need to get back to real crime, to sorting things out?
Of course, you only have to look at their workload, and if they're spending 70% of their time dealing with hurty words, and then the actual murderers and the people committing real crimes are being left to get away with it, or in some cases be released from prison, for example.
But it's not even that, is it, Sam? It's not the big things, is it? It's the little things. It's the woman that had her washing nicked off of her line. It's the guy that had his trailer nicked out of the garden. It's the like what you could call them, what we used to call ASBOs. That it's the public disorders in that go on all the time by again, like you say, by people that don't fit into our culture. And we're seeing more and more complaints of this come as more and more places get loaded out with this. How is Basildon at the moment with the immigration thing? Do you have hotels there? Is there?
So we don't have any hotels here at the moment, but we do have quite a large amount of HMOs, which is proving quite troublesome, especially in an urban area like Basildon, where there's a lot of traffic, a lot of cars, a lot of families. So if you're taking, for example, a family home, kicking the family out that may have one or two cars on their drive, and then you're filling it with 6 bedrooms inside that HMO, and now you've got 6 individuals who may have cars themselves, it's causing a lot of problems there, because it's like people not able to get parked, they're not able to get into the town centre, and of course a lot of these people.
Domino effect. It's a domino effect, isn't
it? And the thing is, the people that these families that are then being moved out of these houses, they're then being moved into HMOs. They're then finding themselves paying rents of £2,500 a month, and if you just take it back 24 months or even 12 months, that the price of renting then, especially in somewhere like Basildon, is on average £1,200-1,300 a month. I mean, you can't find a 4-bedroom house now without paying £2,500.
It's skyrocketing, yeah.
And obviously the problems that come with taking in people that shouldn't be here anyway is that they're not aligned with our culture. They're not aligned with the way we do things. I mean, true immigrants or people that have come here in a legitimate way would have had to have gone through like a British test, been able to speak English. They should have had some form of qualifications. And actually what we're finding, especially in Basildon, is that there's a lot of successful migrants that have come over, that have brought their families over in the 70s and 80s. They've worked really, really hard and contributed to the system, paid tax, built a family here or had a family here and built their lives. They now feel like they're being hit with that same brush, that these illegal migrants are, and their behaviours that they're bringing over. Now, if I mean, there are some cultures that are just not compatible with the United Kingdom, and it's very clear from recent events that we've seen, especially in the centre of the country, where 10 people were stabbed on the train. That isn't British. That isn't a British way of doing things. That is not our culture. If we see that happen 20, 30 years ago, I mean, even if that happened when I was a child, it would be an outrage. Nowadays, it's just expected.
It's normalised, isn't it? And we have to just say that he wasn't actually a migrant, was he? I think he was a British guy, but it's part and parcel of what's becoming acceptable or deemed as acceptable in the country now. That exactly like you say, and I agree with you. 10 years ago, that kind of thing happens, it would have been a national outrage, and it would have gone on for weeks, and people would have been calling for accountability of the police and everything. Now it has effectively. A guy gets propped up as a hero, and it just gets brushed aside. Let's have the next. What's the next thing? What's the next atrocity that's going to happen? What's the next issue that's going to happen? And we've seen more cases again in the last few weeks of alleged rapes, of alleged assaults. These are going on all the time. We know they're hiding the numbers. We know that they change the way these people. So one of the big loopholes they have, and one of the big things they do, is instead of calling them illegal migrants, they change them to arriving passengers, or they give them some other classification that they don't then register in FOI requests and things like that. This has all been exposed. And what we're seeing is these, then you see the boots on the ground, don't you? See it at the coalface. The general public are starting to see groups of men in areas, and there's intimidation. Women feel scared to walk past these guys because they've experienced some kind of intimidation. And in some cases, I mean, there's not a statistic on it because they don't publish it, but you could probably argue that 1 in 50 of these things turns into something serious. A woman gets followed or attacked, or a child, and we're seeing more and more and more of that. Yet they want to keep covering the statistics up, but it's part and parcel of this agenda, and it's just getting worse.
And it is getting worse. I mean, even just over the last 8 weeks, I've had 3 residents come into my place of work, which, of course, I'm a councillor, but obviously I have my own business as well. I've had 3 residents come into me saying I've been sexually assaulted, I've been followed, and I said, "Who by? Who are the people that are doing this?" I don't know, but all I do know is they don't look like they come from here. Yeah. And when that's followed up, and then you find out that these people have previous convictions or previous arrests for these things, and they had only happened in the last 3 or 4 months, you start asking yourself, where do we find ourselves as a country when? And
I can and there have been some very high profile cases recently where people have been arrested for sexual assaults or various different crimes, and then it has transpired he was wanted for murder in Syria, or he was wanted for gang-related crimes in Somalia, and you're like, how is this even happening? How have we got to a point that, and I think what annoys me more than anything is that reclassification of people, because they're loopholing the way people come into the country to make out that there's something that they're not. And they're trying to make, like, these are okay. And it goes back to the same argument. I think that one of the arguments I've always had is I would love to walk up to all these MPs with a bag of M&Ms and just say, by the way, there's 50 M&Ms there. 2 of them are going to poison and kill you, potentially. Take one and just see if they will. Because it's the same argument, isn't it? It's the argument.
Take it.
And we're not talking, and it goes back to exactly what you said. There are a lot of legal migrants that come into this country that we all accept because they do integrate. They want to
celebrate
here.
And celebrate as well.
We celebrate them, and we do get skilled people coming in here. But recent statistics have showed that the vast majority of migrants that are coming into this country now, I think it's only 12 to 18% are skilled workers. The rest are low skilled. And that's the other problem as well, is we've got this low-skilled influx of people. We're not bringing the doctors and engineers in that they claim that we are, and it's becoming detrimental to society. And we're seeing that play out in real terms now. And, of course, people just want to blame Brexit, et cetera, but, yeah.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're always going to blame something than themselves.
But funny, those people forget about the low-skilled Eastern European migration that we used to have flood into the country, which I was part of because I was working in the building trade. Nothing against these guys, because most of these Polish gangs that came over here were really hard workers, but I know firsthand what they did. They would turn up on site for 8 weeks. They would do all the groundwork that needed to be done, take their money and bugger off back to Poland. And put that money back into Polish society. Nothing against Poland, like they seem to have got their screws.
Absolutely.
Like they weren't daft, and we're the idiots. The mugs on the other side of it. Well, Brexit, given I've talked about this many, many times, the Ramonas will never ever accept that Brexit was sabotaged. We all know it was sabotaged. It's printed in black and white. It's clear as day they didn't want it. And now they blame that. But it's the Boris wave, isn't it? The Boris wave is now starting to show up on figures that it was a mass problem. It's been a mass problem. The whole Brexit thing, because of the way they negotiated the deal. We never got a proper Brexit.
And I think you only have to look at the reason why Rishi Sunak called that snap general election is because we knew that the super injunction was going to be blasted out of the water for everyone to see, and he was trying to protect the Conservative Party. Now, if that tells you a lot, that a government with such a majority like that decides to create a snap election or snap general election to try and save as many seats as possible, because they knew what the public feeling was around these things, and obviously the whole issue around Afghanistan and obviously the details that were leaked. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of people that helped us in our effort in Iraq and Afghanistan, but the problem being here is that a lot of these are Taliban fighters. They're bringing 10, 12 members of their family with them, and you can only say sorry to a certain extent. We do not have the infrastructure, we do not have the homes, we do not have the economy to be able to take in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of additional people. Now, I understand that GDP or gross domestic product is a big part of economics when it comes down to government. But what we should actually be focusing on is gross domestic happiness. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of residents out there that would
I like that. Gross domestic happiness. I love that, mate. That's brilliant.
Well, and I think
you have to coin that.
well, I think you're more than welcome to take it. You're more than welcome.
That's yours, mate. That's all yours. I love it. That's brilliant. Gross domestic happiness. I love that.
And you know what? I think residents and people and taxpayers of the United Kingdom wouldn't mind seeing stagnant growth on GDP or even a percentage to backwards, as long as we feel safe, or that we're able to go out and fulfil our daily duties as family members and be able to go out and shop and feel safe and
enjoy life.
Indeed, enjoy life. That's all that people want. That is all that residents want, are to feel safe and to enjoy life. And if this government is not going to focus on people's happiness and how people feel and the way that they conduct themselves, I'm sorry to say that Labour are going to find themselves pretty much extinct at the next general election, and we're seeing that on a local basis as well. This is why Labour, especially Basildon Labour, are hitting reform so hard, because they can see the inevitable. They can see that we are rising and that Nigel Farage is going to be our next Prime Minister, and that's a big problem for their gravy train, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think on that note, let's move on to what happened with you, because not a lot of people might be aware. I mean, I think there are, because I think you've documented it, I've documented it. It's gone around the mill. But I think just to reiterate, Sam obviously got into power and then came up against a Labour council leader who, let's just say, had it in for you, where we'll play a little clip now of what Sam had to suffer. And yeah, some of the stuff this guy said to you, because it was quite intimidating, wasn't it? So
thank you very much for confirming exactly your intentions in this meeting.
And I'm going to rip you apart in a minute. Let's deal with these questions in total.
Did you I don't know anything. To rip me apart?
I am going to rip you apart in a minute.
Excuse me. Are you allowed to take photos and videos of residents? I pay my council tax.
Why are you here?
In this building. What about the little photo downstairs on the door that says no filming?
I know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay, you do.
And you've been live streamed.
Oh.
We go. Absolutely. I think you should leave. Come to get my key. Out you go. Don't say something like that. Out you go. I'm still videoing.
Go get a shower.
Out you go.
Get some deodorant on.
For that to go up on the Labour County group page. Do you think that's not allowed to be videoed inside the thing, are they not?
Council, if I get you in your room.
now that you obviously went through a process with this, we obviously arranged this interview after you wanted to get that cleared up. What happened, mate? In your words, what went on?
So it's probably one of the most astronomical forms of overreach that I've ever seen, not just from a local government, but we're also talking about paid officers as well. So when earlier I mentioned the CEO and I mentioned the monitoring officer and various other officers, they were in collusion to be able to bring me down because of how quickly we were growing as a party in Basildon, and I decided to take one of our residents down to the Reform group room. So when you form a party on a local government, you are assigned a group room where you can take residents, you can have conversations, and you can do your business basically. I arrived with my resident, and I had to go and ask for my room key. So I was invited into the officer's office where all of the officers sit and do all their work. So that includes the CEO, the monitoring officer, and all of your standard council officers, shall we say. They sit in an open room where 150.
Can I just interject? Can we talk about them for a sec, Sam?
Yeah.
So are these people elected, or they're just the office staff, but they hold positions, or would they be the great of civil service or Whitehall orientated? What's
basically?
Yeah.
So basically, council officers are effectively like civil servants. So so we have a CEO, monitoring officer, someone that looks after, like director of planning, director of people, someone that looks after our environmental bits and pieces like bins and keeping
DEI.
DEI as well, DEI. But these people are paid great sums of money, and sometimes they are all over six figures. So these people are meant to be. When they are put into those positions, they are meant to be impartial. They're meant to be apolitical. They're meant to have absolutely zero political affiliation with any party, because obviously local governments, they change. One minute it's Labour, 1 minute it's Conservative, and next it's going to be Reform. But you can't, I mean, some CEOs of some councils last 20, 25 years, and they've learnt the game. They learn to make sure that residents come first, and then you manage the legal side of things with the parties, and keeping those great relationships going. But unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where Basildon Labour or the officers have found themselves in Basildon Labour's pockets. So when they want to try and, for example, create a situation where a Reform councillor and his resident find themselves unable to get into the group room because the key didn't work, they were then able to arrange for the police to come down and arrest me for allegedly harassing and refusing to leave, and stalking. I mean,
in a building you're elected to be in.
Absolutely. So as an elected member, at no point should I have been arrested inside that council building. And I'm sure the videos that have gone around, and I'm sure, as you said, you'll show some clips.
I'll show some. Yeah, definitely, I'll show some of what went on. Yeah,
where I am being told that I need to go wear deodorant, I stink, that I need to have a shower, and then I'm being filmed with my resident for over 15 minutes by another Labour councillor, so they could set me up to be arrested by the local police. Now, I don't blame the local police for this, because I fully respect that the local police have to take all of the information they had to hand, and they had to deal with a situation which they were just walking straight into. But the fact that the CEO had only days before, in a video that I published, who was standing over me, screaming and shouting at me, where the monitoring officer had to ask him to sit down because of how bad his behaviour was. He said, "Right, that's it, I'm calling the police." And then 3 days later, I find myself back inside that council office, asking for our key to be able to get into the room. They said, "No problem, this key isn't working, so come take a seat outside." Me and the resident take a seat outside, and before you know where you are, I'm in cuffs, being led away by 3 police officers, perp walked through the town in which I'm elected. It's just...
And this went on, didn't it? This was then you then went through a process with this. It wasn't something that just got dropped, was it? It transpired into other things, didn't it?
Of course it did. I found myself for 20 hours at His Majesty's pleasure in Southend Custody Suites, waiting for my solicitor, waiting for an interview to then find out that Councillor Gavin Callaghan had made these spurious complaints about me, about that I harassed him and all this nonsense. And then even to this day, he still claims that happened, and the evidence speaks complete to the opposite of what happened. Because, I mean, there was an example where allegedly I met him in a cafe and started screaming and shouting at him. The evidence pointed to him shouting, screaming and swearing at me. But he didn't expect the cafe owner to provide the CCTV and the audio evidence to the police. I mean, there was various threats against the cafe. There's various threats against people who were standing up for me. And I genuinely didn't do anything wrong. If I had said something out of turn, if I committed an action which wasn't right, I'd put my hand up and say I'm guilty. But on this particular occasion, and then, well, specifically on this occasion, I didn't do what they were claiming I'd done. And because I was sat inside the council building and I'd been asked to sit outside in the foyer, they then told the police that I refused to leave the building. Now, and then I was arrested and then taken down to Southend Police Station, where I had a fantastic lawyer who knew exactly what to do. But then I was given bail conditions, illegal bail conditions as well. Bail conditions where I wasn't able to communicate with the council leader, and that included inside the council chamber.
So effectively, this was detrimental then to your elected position.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to stop me from communicating with the council leader. And it wasn't until about 48 hours later that I get a phone call from the police to say, look, we need to adjust your bail conditions because they're not legal. You need to be able to communicate in the chamber. You need to be able to bring these people to or to scrutinise what they're doing as a councillor, because that is your role as an elected member. So the bail conditions were adjusted, and it went through a period of about 10 weeks where, of course, I was affected by it. Of course I was. I'd been accused of something I'd never done.
Because as well, I think we should reiterate, there's only two of you, aren't there? There's only two reform councillors. How many councillors in total does Basildon have? 42
in total. So
you're literally two against 40.
Yes.
Well, maybe not all of them. Maybe not all of them are against you, but certainly probably the Labour, Tory, the establishment lot are probably not going to be two on your side. Do you feel like you were supported at all by anyone else? Was there support there? Was anyone else on your side, or was you just up against the wall? And
well, I was up against the wall, but and surprisingly enough, the local Conservatives were quite supportive. Quite supportive in the way that they approached the situation as well. Because of course, you hear that Reform Councillor has been arrested, and the first thing you think of course he has, and because
that serves that narrative, doesn't it? Oh, he must have, of course he's done something wrong. Typical far right reformer. Of course, when it's a manipulation, as always.
It is manipulation, and it's narcissism at its absolute best. And thankfully, the people see it, the other parties see it. And before we got to the end, where I was eventually given no further action due to insufficient evidence, you could see the support decline for Labour locally, and you could see the support for Reform rise, because people can see exactly what is happening here. People can see through what the political agenda is and what they're trying to achieve. And because people know me, I mean, I'd hate to say that I'm a face locally, but because I have a very successful business, I've grown up round here, I've went to school round here as well. People know me, and people know that I'm not that way inclined. I don't scream, I don't shout. Yes, I might be a little bit direct, but I would say that's probably...
There's nothing wrong with... but that's the thing, is like there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with getting heightened in situations or being vocal in situations. But you're elected to do that, and we obviously understand that those kind of things are going to happen inside council chambers. There's going to be arguments, people are going to have difference of opinion, but it seems to me like exactly what you're saying is from the get-go, from the moment you were elected, there was an agenda against you to dismiss you, to portray you as something that you're not, and it backfired on them.
And it backfired massively. I mean, you only have to look at how people see politics now. I mean, when stuff goes out online, or if there's public events, people are criticising Labour so heavily, more heavily than I've ever seen before. Now, Labour weren't doing a fantastic job when I first got in, but now the local newspapers, the local media, yourself, other parties, they're seeing exactly through what has happened here. And because they've got to know me, they understand that obviously I do have autism, I do have ADHD. The way that my brain processes things is slightly different, and it's not normal. My brain is not a normal functioning brain. I'm able to find patterns in things. I'm very driven. I'm able to go and deliver on what I say I'm going to deliver, because there's this sense of justice that I need to do that for my people. And I just don't think they've ever come up against somebody that is true to their word and will deliver what they said. Now, earlier on, I mentioned about my 3 manifesto pledges. It was to fill the shops, to reduce crime, but it was also to reduce the waste in the council. And because where I've pointed out, I mean, I'll give you an example. About 2 months ago, the council leader, Gavin Callaghan, decided to pay another councillor's husband £9,700 for some photos. Now that was brought out into the public domain, and residents were rightly outraged. And what do you think the local council did? Pushed it under the carpet and refused to answer any questions, because they're so engaged with each other and they're not impartial or apolitical like they should be. They should have come out and said, no, that is wrong. I could understand why residents are unhappy. The fact that £9,700 of council money went to a cabinet member or a Labour cabinet member's husband, but they're so. They've put their head in their. They've put their head in the
sand.
sand.
Do you think that's product of the fact that they've had their feet under the table for so long, getting away with this? They've never had anyone come through to call these things out. And I think we see this. It's not just yours. And the example you just gave there are hundreds of other examples of this. Jobs for boys, contracts for mates. We see it all the time. They've got someone they know in an organisation.
I call it Family and Friends Limited. That's what I call it.
Well, it is. Well, it is. It is exactly that. It is family and friends. And I think every council has it. And I think it's because, I firmly believe it's because the general public have been kind of hoodwinked into. And going back to what you've said, local governance is the backbone of what happens. Everyone thinks that these 650 seats in Parliament, there's 21,000 council positions across the country. You just said 42 in your council alone, which is dominated by Labour, has been for a period of time. And just the two of you coming in for reform shows the disruption you can cause and the things that you can call out. And imagine now if you had 32 reform councillors, because your election's coming around next year. Did you guys?
They are indeed in May.
They are in May.
And there's 14 seats.
14 seats up for grabs, which can swing that quite predominantly in your direction, can't it?
Of course, because if you look at the makeup of our administration in Basildon, it's made up of Basildon Labour and the Independent Group, and the Independent Group have always bidded for votes by saying that they are independent. They don't believe in Labour values. They don't believe in Conservative values. They are an independent voice. Now, if you look at how they act and the way that they vote with Basildon Labour, they aren't Labour anymore. They are Independent Labour. That's what they are, and residents are seeing it. They've had enough, and this is why Reform are doing so well. And I think whatever Gavin Callaghan can do to try and get me out of my seat or to try and discredit me or smear me, being that I am a strong voice, they're hoping that will be reflective of how people will vote in May. Now, if we come in and we take all 14 seats, we will be able to. We won't be a majority on that occasion. We'll have to wait for the next year.
But it gives you more firepower. It gives you more support. It gives you a corner. You form a corner, don't you? A cornerstone.
No, exactly that. And I think they've seen how vocal 2 members of Reform can be. Could you imagine what 14, 15, 16 members of Reform will be like? For them, it's terrifying. The establishment is petrified of
because then there's more of you that can go through these contracts, these payments, and I think we're seeing that we definitely saw it in Kent, where they've, and in Durham, where they're starting to go, because there's a lot of them there, and they've got people that are good with numbers, have run businesses, they're going through these contracts, going through these things, and they're finding endless amounts of waste. So you've really got an uphill struggle there, haven't you, at the moment? Just the two of you, 40 other people who are part of that gravy train, plus whatever's sitting in the background, like you said, the officers and stuff that are sitting in the background, all aligned to the civil service, which we know is part of the agenda. It's really the government that's telling everyone what to do. So you're fighting a massive machine, aren't you? It's a huge machine. How eye-opening has that been to you? How and if we were to try and encourage people, because obviously the point of this interview is for us to get people to stand up in your area, to get people to stand with Reform and stand with you and come and fight this. That's what we need to do. And we have to do it democratically. What would your advice be to people for that? Like, don't be scared. Like, it's like...
I think there's always an element of nerves and anticipation about what may bring. I think what's happened to me is I would hope is an anomaly, given the situation and given the severity of what's happened. I think the police are thinking twice about arresting a Reform councillor in Basildon again over spurious claims. So I think I've taken the heat there. But I would turn around and say to anybody thinking to put their hand up, it is the most. It is the best thing I've ever done in my life. Sometimes words can't describe it, because you have the ability to be able to turn someone's life around. You have the ability to make improvements to people's lives and do things that people really want in their local area. I mean, we only have to look at the planning committees and the building on Greenbelt and stuff like that. Residents are up in arms. They do not want to see our greenbelt being built on, especially, I mean, the local plan that Labour have put forward, that they want to build 25,000 homes in Basildon, but 19,000 of them on the greenbelt land. And you only have to look at the residents that come to the planning committees and give their statements and say, we don't agree with this. I represent 200 other residents right now. They couldn't care. They couldn't care less.
I was about to say to you, does it just get brushed off? Does it just get brushed aside because the agenda's going to make this happen anyway? And it seems like you've just confirmed that they don't care what people think.
And it's quite telling. I mean, I've done my research into the previous 24 planning committees that Basildon Borough Council has had. And although you are meant to have something called probity in planning, where you go in with an open mind and you don't pre-decide on an application before you've actually seen the facts and you've heard residents speak for and against, the last 24 committees, all of the Labour plan. I think it's very telling when Councillor Harrison decides to come to the planning committee and very much on what Councillor Blake said about it's just scrubland. No, it's greenbelt land. That's what it is. And it seems that every time we come to one of these planning committees, as soon as there's 250 homes, 450 homes, 1,000 homes, it just gets rubber stamped all the way through. I can almost guarantee you and tell you exactly what is going to happen at every planning committee, because the Labour councillors on this particular committee are whipped into making decisions. And committee members have voted the same. Now, if you're telling me that there's something, and that is just going back to February last year, so even before they took the main government, they've always been, or the local government rather, they have been working together to try and put these houses on the greenbelt, when that's not what residents want. And that's one thing I've always said, is that as a councillor, for me, it's about representing the residents and what they want. I mean, I was at one of the planning committees I was at. One of the councillors turned around and said, well, Sam is being particularly naive because it's not actually it's not down to what the residents want, it's what the government wants. And I said, well, if I can't stand here as a councillor for St Martin's in Basildon and represent what the people want, what am I doing here?
But that you've just highlighted an issue there, and that is product of the establishment, that they've been in government, be it Tory Labour for decades, and the council has become an overreaching arm of top government.
Yes.
And it's not what it's supposed to be. The councils are supposed to be there to represent the general public and represent that area, and you're supposed to be standing up for those people, because you're the voice to your elected MP to then go into Parliament and say, look, they're not happy with this. Not, this is our agenda, this is what we're going to do. We're going to push it onto our council representatives who control that council, and forget what everyone in the public says. That's what's happening. So everything's twisted the wrong way around now, isn't it? I think it's been 30, 40 years of this.
And that's exactly what residents are sick and tired of. They're sick and tired of the gravy train. They're sick and tired of agendas being pushed that they don't particularly agree with. And I think when you get two councillors from Reform who then stand up and say, well, I'm not voting well, how can we vote for something which is against the public interest, is against what the residents want? That is what scares them. This is why they're trying to cancel the elections in 2026.
Is that happening with you? Because obviously mine, because you're close to me, I'm Suffolk. We had ours cancelled in 2025 to go into 2026, but now they're talking again about they could potentially be cancelled, or they're going to try and push them out until 2027 for this devolution. Because I'm pretty sure Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk are going to go into some kind of devolved authority. I don't know if that includes you in that. I don't know if you're side. Yeah. So we're all, and I don't know the specifics around that. I think they've been quite tight-lipped. I don't know if you've got any info, Sam, on what the proposal is of that. Obviously, we would get a mayor, which would probably be based out of Ipswich. Ipswich has a mayor. I don't know if you have a mayor in Essex anywhere. Do you have a mayor?
Not yet, no, but they are creating that mayoral position, and Reform are going to. announcing their mayoral candidate. I'm sure in the next few weeks, months, as we get closer towards the election. But yes, no, Basildon is part of that local government restructuring.
Can you give any insight into that, what they're proposing? Because at the moment, inside yours, we've got 42 council members. I think Suffolk's got similar number as well. So we're talking about a lot of councils that are going to conjoined together. How many councillors are going to be in there? Do you think it's just a way for the establishment to try and maintain their power? Is that what they're doing?
I don't think it's so much to maintain power. I think it's
Okay.
a case of, I think it's more of a cost saving exercise. Not that I think that there's many costs to be saved. Say if Basildon was to align with 4 other councils and become a 5 council unitary, the council would have a budget of £16 million worth of taxpayers' money just to pay off the CEOs and monitoring officers who would be given the boot. Because if you've got so many people,
of course, yeah. This is going to cost the taxpayer, isn't it? These people are going to be paid off out of positions.
Millions and millions and millions of pounds are going to be spent of taxpayers' money to be able to dissolve Basildon Council and bring it together with another unitary, and there's not going to be many costs. There's not going to be any savings really. It's more of a case that it becomes a bigger council and that it's run under one enterprise, and rather than it be 4 or 5 separate enterprises. And I can understand that it may seem top line, oh, they're going to save some money, but when you have to take into consideration all of the contracts, especially around the bins, around recycling, the roads, that sort of thing, they have to be renegotiated, and some contracts will have to be ended. Now, when you signed a contract and you're signed up for X, Y, Z amount of years and multi-millions of pounds, there's a cost.
There'll be termination deals. There'll be
absolutely.
So this is, so it's being sold as a way of saving money, but it's going to cost an absolute fortune to do it in the first place. They like to forget that headline, don't they? Like you just said. Have you heard at all? So obviously you mentioned the 4 councils. I think it's similar. I'm not fully aware of how they're going to do it, because I think they've been tight-lipped on how it's going to happen. So you'd end up probably again with the same sort of civil service. You'd have your officers and stuff inside that council. You have your mayor, probably then a deputy mayor and a few other higher elected officials. How many councillors are they talking about? Because you're probably talking about getting rid of 200 and 250 councillors to replace them with what? 50?
Around 100.
About 100.
About 100, yeah. So, but the thing they're not taking into consideration is that because Reform are doing so well locally, even if they go into this unitary council and they sign off on a 5 council unitary, which is what they're trying to push. I know that in central England there was one where there were 3 councils brought together, but I truly do believe that they will bring 5 councils together. And then the problem then becomes, okay, so now when we do planning applications or we do licensing applications or we make decisions on Basildon, that's now going to be stretched out to a further field. Now, who's to say that, for example, I'll give you 2 rather. So you've got Basildon, Thurrock and Southend. If all 3 of those councils come together, what's stopping Thurrock and Southend buddying up together with their 60, 70 councillors, voting against what people want in Basildon, which means
prioritise their area?
Exactly. I mean, you only have to look at the debt that is currently in these councils. Now, I think it was released that there's £332 million worth of debt in Southend. There's £1.2 billion worth of debt in Thurrock due to the solar panel fraud that was committed over there. And then you've got £700 million in Basildon. Now, residents of Basildon do not want to be teamed up with Thurrock because we're going to have to take on their debts.
Yes, that's a very good point you've made there, mate. Yeah, and I think a lot. And these are the little things that I think normal people overlook and oversee. And and having you in, that's a really good point, mate. That's a very. And
you also have to understand as well that the leader of Basildon Council, Gavin, has turned around and said that this debt will be eradicated, that the Secretary of State will remove this debt and will go in completely clean.
If you elect a Labour government? If you elect a Labour
well, no, if we come together as a unitary. Now, there was a post that James McMurdoch MP put out a couple of weeks ago, where he asked a question directly to the Secretary of State, saying what percentage of debt is going to be carried over. And they're saying they're only going to write off around 20-30%. So if we had 1.2 million to 700. Or
So if we look at this net, yeah, like if you can join this all together, 20-30%, then is nothing, is it?
And of course, you only have to look at services and the way that they're not being delivered already. Can you imagine what's going to happen when you add another £2 billion worth of debt to ours, and then we have to try and claw that money back from residents? The only way that money is going to be clawed back is in increased council tax rises. And people are saying, oh, £250 a month is a lot of money for council tax. It is. That is an astonishing amount of money. How are people going to feel when it's £500-600 a month and people are having to sacrifice food and electric to be able to pay the council tax because of irresponsible spending? In Basildon, we've got a £60-70 million arena being built, all out of taxpayers' money. All out of taxpayers' money, and we have all of this debt, and it's being accrued, and it's being accrued. I mean, I did some due diligence on the debt payment, on the interest payments for Basildon Council alone. We're paying £70,000 a day just to service the interest. That's not coming off of any initial capital. That is paying down the interest.
And this is where people are hoodwinked. They don't see this, do they? They don't see this going on, because this happens right up the chain. If we refer back to the NHS under the PFI scheme that Labour introduced around about 2003, 2004, the NHS still pays that today. They are still paying back billions a year in money that's that's basically funding interest for and again in your council. You're talking about 70 grand a day in interest payments, which that adds up, doesn't it, over a month? That's a lot of money in the millions. Just paying millions for interest on stuff that's and the negotiation of contracts. We've seen this before. Contracts that are negotiated for bigger businesses, government aligned. I mean, I don't want to discredit them entirely, but if you ever look at government contracts, Kia Group, the construction group, make billions out of government contracts with what they do with infrastructure, billions, and they pick up contracts all the time. And I think personally that a lot of these organizations are just, it's like printing money for them. Because,
of course it is.
Because they're not scrutinised. That people, and I would imagine you've probably seen the same thing in your area. You'll find a contract for cutting down trees at a park, and it's like 25 grand, and you're like, hold on a minute, I'm a businessman. I know local businesses. I know local build. I could have got that done for $2.5 grand. Where the hell's this got 10 times as much as what it was? And then you find out someone's mate.
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to give you a perfect example of that. A freedom of information request was put into Basildon Council about our new logo. So bearing in mind, in 18 months, our council will be dissolved. We will no longer be Basildon Borough Council no more. Within the next 18 months to 2 years, we will be dissolved. Now, this council spent £12,000 on a new logo and £100,000 to implement it across the estate. So when I say implement, I mean that's on the new mugs, the new pens, the new letterheads, that sort of thing. And you think to yourself, why have you spent 12 grand on a new logo when in 2 years this council is not even going to exist? And you have to start asking questions, because I then did start asking questions. I then started asking local businesses, what would this have cost to have made? I mean, we know I could have gone on Fiverr online and I could have created a logo for £5, £10, £15 and it would probably look just as good. In fact, the logo is so terrible, it's actually disastrous, to be honest.
Mine's up there, and I think it took me 10 minutes on Canva.
That's exactly what I mean. But they spent £12,000 outsourcing this to a company they've used before. And I would be embarrassed. If I was the owner of that particular graphic design company, and then I had to ask or answer the question, was it value for the taxpayer? How they could sit there and turn around and say that it was, they would be lying. I mean, even down to, I'll give you a Basildon Hospital as an example, right? One of the wards needed a new microwave. They can go pick one up for 25, 30 quid from Asda or Argos. But no, they had to put it through for someone else to have a look at. I think they call it, what's the word I'm looking for? When it goes out to...
Like procurement.
Procurement, okay.
Procurement, yeah.
So it went out to...
I know about all that. I know about that.
Well, you're going to love this. £250 for a new microwave because it had to go through a procurement company. Now, that's incredible. It's 90% of the actual cost of that is profit going to these procurement companies. And I'm sorry, but it's not right. If someone gave me a bill, or if someone gave me an estimate or a quote, as a business owner, I know there's a bit of negotiation there. There's 30, 40, 50% we can try and knock off. But because Labour, you only have to look at the Labour front bench. They haven't got a single bit of business acumen in their little. I mean, I've got more in this little pinky of mine than they do in the Labour front bench. They don't understand business. They've never run a business. They've never had employees. They never had to deal with HR. They never had to deal with taxes. So when these big companies go along to these meetings and say, "Come on, let's have a little carve up here. We're gonna make a few quid because we're dealing with idiots." And I'm sorry to say, but it is idiotic movements that is causing our country to become economically unstable and causes.
And I think it goes full circle back to where we started. Is that these people in the civil service, these officers and stuff, they're recruiting them directly out of A-level or politics degrees.
Mm-hmm.
They've never worked in the real world like people like yourself. Or me, been in the building trade yourself, you run a business, various different people. And I know when we went to the conference, when we met at the conference in Birmingham, the people for reform you see and the people we were all speaking to there are business people. They understand this. They've run businesses, they've run companies, small businesses in town centres. They've employed people, they've paid those taxes, they've had to scrimp and scrape and build up. And they want to transition that in. Yet everyone will sit saying that Reform UK are full of ex-Tories, that Reform UK are this, but it isn't, is it? I mean, just for everybody out there, Sam will say this, I will say this. I've been to my local meetings, I've been to conferences, we've seen the people that are standing for reform, and it's you guys out there, that, like Sam, that step up, fill in that application form, and then take your business prowess and take your your accumulated life history into actually working for the people, because these guys are coming out of here, they're part of a machine, they're part of a civil service blob machine that they conjure, just keep manufacturing those people through, and we need people to stand up against it, don't we?
Look, I think if we carry on down the same route that we've always carried on, we're going to get the same results, and that's idiotic. That's completely stupid. As I said, the reason why I stood to be a councillor was because I'd seen the destruction of our country by these people who are meant to know what they're doing, and sometimes, like you said, it's business people like myself, or it's not just business people, it's nurses, it's ex-police officers, and we have such a great range of demographic inside reform. I mean, people will say, it's old white people. That is reform. No. If you come to one of our branch meetings, the type of people that you find at our branch meetings and that support us as volunteers and put their hand up, it is incredible how vast our demographic is as a party. And I think
you're talking about like a demographic of knowledge, a demographic of the kind of industries these people represent, from construction to tech to pharmaceutical. People are in all sorts of jobs: solicitors, accountants, business people, small businesses, large businesses. It's the working class.
It is, and I think you have to take culture in there as well, because
100%, of course.
There's such a vast, like, we're all residents, we're all lovely people, and we just want the best for our country.
That's the thing, Sam. I didn't want to put a demographic of race on it because it's just British people, and I think we're all the same. We don't need to. It doesn't matter what colour skin they are. They're British people that are doing these things, and it's not us that put that label out there. It's others that do it, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think you are quite right, but I think it's a testament to what reform is doing, because to be able to be so welcoming and for everybody to want to feel involved and be a part of it, I think that's a testament to what Nigel's been doing and what our great MPs have been doing, because we need a party which represents everybody and doesn't just represent one part of society, and reform is delivering on that in every single county council and every borough council that we're a part of, and when we're building our branches and when we're building our volunteer base, it's just fantastic, because you just look around to each other and you think, we are the people. We are the silent majority, and we are going to put Nigel into number 10, because we are all independent of thought, we're all independent in the way that we do things, but we have that same understanding of what Britain should look like from a...
Let me just touch on something there that you said there. So a lot of that narrative says that about putting Nigel into number 10. but it's bigger than that, isn't it? As much as Nigel, I love him and love what he stands for, it's not just about him anymore, is it? At some point, probably a year ago, people could have argued, or 18 months ago, because Farage came back, it got them the boost they did, and because he kind of came back and stepped in again as leader, that galvanised it. But I think it's grown bigger since then, because more, like we say, the people that have now moved towards reform, that are standing in these council positions, that are volunteering on the streets to drop and I don't think people understand that game, do they? The people that you're involved with in a branch, that are the volunteers that are stepping up and leaflet dropping on a weekend, that are going out and standing on the stands and just having conversations with people, that it's bigger than just one person now, that they are a credible. If Kemeny Badenoch leaves the Tories, they just get another leader in. And I think Reform are getting to that point. As much as I want to see Nigel there, he's not going to do this forever. And I think Reform now are becoming bigger than that. And they will continue as a party. And the infrastructure is there now to, when Nigel does his time, someone else will step in. And they're going to replace this establishment rot.
And I think you are right there. The growth within inside the party has been amazing. The support that we get from the higher ups is amazing as well. Honestly, you could not. I couldn't criticise them, because for someone like me who's come into politics without any background in politics, the education, the buddying, the support that I've had, that's just been incredible. Honestly, it's been.
And people don't see that, do they?
No. Some people think that you're just thrown into the deep end and you're asked to be a politician. I have so many people that will support me, give me advice, ask for my opinion on how we're going to shape things. So, although I do truly believe that getting Nigel into number 10 is the most critical mission of our lives.
Definitely, yeah.
I do understand where you're coming from.
Because there's going to be a continuation after that.
Yeah.
That was my point. Is yes, for me it's important as well, because I think we need his voice. But it's not just about that, is it? It's the continuation of building a working class party, and the people that get involved with that party, the grassroots, the councils, the boroughs, everything, the unitaries, the mayors, the London is huge for me. And you're close to that. I know Essex is probably affected quite a lot by what goes on in London. 1,800 seats are going to be up for grabs in 2026 in that place. It's massive. It's massive.
And I think you also have to understand as well is that grassroots politics is the strong foundation for what our MPs are going to deliver once they get into Parliament. Because I mean, you only have to look at our local branches. I mean, I look at Labour, I look at Conservatives. When I was at canvassing on the last couple of days of my particular election, that's when they all decided to come out. But there wasn't no volunteers. It was just literally councillors and MPs who represent their parties that come out to support. They have no ground game. They have literally zero ground game.
Because they've thrived off the fact they know everyone's just going to put an X in their boxes for years. And now there's a challenge to it. They're panicking.
Of course they are. And I think when you see 50, 60 people out wearing turquoise, whether it be Make Britain Great Again or we're wearing our Reform UK football shirts as well, people look at that and they think, they're doing amazing. They're doing a great job, and they're doing it for a reason. And you need to have that energy. You need to be able to have the volunteer base to be able to deliver on these by-elections and election, like local elections and general elections, because I can't just go out and spread the word myself. You need to have a great group of volunteers.
And support group. Yeah, you need a support group there, don't you? And I think that's where people miss when so you've got 5 MPs. Those 5 MPs have their team around them. They're then attached to a constituency. That constituency's got a council and a parish council and wards. And then those people that are standing in those 40 positions that you're in your council, and you've got 14 coming up next year. That requires volunteers. That requires leaflet droppers. That requires an accountant. All these different things have to go on in the background. So it's not just about the 5 up there. It is this massive ground game, and it's a game against what you said, what you're experiencing in your local council is the civil servants that are embedded there. There are an establishment group of Labour, Lib and Tory MPs, I should imagine. It's a big fight, isn't it? But it's one that Reform are definitely, they've punched a hole through the wall, essentially, haven't they? And they're ripping it down.
Of course, and you know what? When people ask me what my biggest challenge is, my biggest challenge is trying to be able to work the civil servants and the council officers to be a bit more impartial again. That is the hardest job, because we can stand here, we can talk the talk, we can vote the vote, but when it comes down to actually implementing and delivering on what we said we're going to deliver, we need to have a group of people within our council offices and our civil servants who will deliver that agenda for us and won't put up a wall to
Red
stop.
tape, which is what we see. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that is the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is ensuring that our council officers and our civil servants are flexible in their approach, because if they're not flexible in their approach, it doesn't matter what you implement. If you haven't got the team invested into delivering that agenda, it's gonna make it twice as hard. And that's what
that's where the fighting and the yeah.
It's exactly that. And I think we are definitely moving in the right direction. I mean, Basildon needs a little bit more work, but there's been some fantastic success stories across the country where officers are really working with the administration now, although remaining impartial. Officers are working with the administration to deliver. I think it was the Telegraph who noted that councils around the country that are reform-led are filling on average 650 potholes a day. Now, that's fantastic. Fantastic work. Now, if you speak to the average driver on the street and they say, what's your biggest problem with the road? It's not so much the width of the roads or if there's rubbish on the roads, it's the fact there's potholes that cause damage to your car. And I mean, I don't know how many years that people have been talking about, we must fill the potholes. No one ever does, except for reform.
Yeah.
Reform deliver the agenda that the people want to see.
And probably in a negotiated contract that's actually cost effective to the public and not costing 10 grand per pothole.
Of course, I mean that's an incredible amount of money, and I think it was quite funny to see that when people were painting the flags into these holes, that they were being fixed afterwards. But if there is a will, there is a way. Okay, and Reform UK have a will to make Britain great again, and to make it an enjoyable place to live, somewhere safe and a party that you can count on to deliver exactly what your needs are. Like the hierarchy of needs, that they start at the very bottom with feeling safe, with having a home, by being warm, by having food on the table and feeling safe. These are the minimum things that we need to deliver on. And once we deliver on that, all of the top end agendas where you start building arenas like
bigger immigration policy,
of course. And you know what? If we start from the bottom, we will build a nice strong foundation for what reform needs to deliver as the years go on. And I have every faith in Nigel in delivering the national policy. I have every faith in myself delivering a local policy here in Basildon. But we just need more. We need more councillors. We need more people to put their hand up, and I just want to make sure that they know that they don't be scared. Okay, because what happened to me is an anomaly in the grand scheme of things. But
well, actually, Sam, I beg to differ on that. I wouldn't say it's an anomaly, because I would say we've actively seen an agenda against Reform UK councillors, the 800 that there are now. That there are smear campaigns going on. They're trying to do everything they can to discredit people, which are quite often put to bed, specifically in your case as well. And I think that is for me, it's bad because you have to suffer it, but it's good because it wakes people up to what's actually going on. And I credit you for that, because you've stood strong. You're on your own. You've got support from the party, but minimal support in where you are. And you've stood strong. You've come through the back of it. You've shown the public. You've shown people what's happened and what's going on behind closed doors. And I think this will resonate with a lot of people. And what I hope is Sam's kind of already done it, but my last part was going to be moving forward the strategy, because 2026. I don't think people realise how big 2026 is. Forget the general election for a minute, because like we say, the reality is it's 2029. I believe it will be 2027. Like yourself, we mentioned those dates earlier. 2026, 6,000 seats, 14 up for grabs in Basildon. And I think people have got to start paying attention now. And if you want to, if people want to stand, what do they do, mate? What do they do?
So I would always recommend, whether you're in Basildon, whether you're in London, or whether you're in Scotland and you're watching this here today with us, just reach out to your local branch. If you go to reformparty.uk, sorry, give me 2 seconds, Bruce. Let me just confirm that is definitely the...
That's all right. Don't worry. We'll edit that bit out as well.
Sorry, mate.
The right one in.
Yeah,
I
that's
could
it.
put a link up. I could probably put a link on the screen, mate.
That's brilliant. Right. So how do people become a councillor? So whether you live in Basildon, whether you live in Essex, or whether you live in Scotland, as an example, if you go to reformparty.uk, which is our website, you'll see a big button in the corner that says Stand for Us. You just need to fill out an application form, and then our local branch chairmen or chairwomen will reach out to you and go through the process with you. Obviously, it is a volunteer position, but you do get an allowance as well. So if you're someone that's got the experience of life, but also at the same time twiddling your thumbs, thinking, "Oh, I could really do something to help benefit my local community," please consider it. I mean, in terms of time that you need to give up, it's just a few hours a week. Some people think that I'm doing this 40, 50 hours a week. It feels like it sometimes, and I'm definitely putting the hours in. But realistically, like council meetings are every 6 weeks. There's various training that you get given as well by the party and by the local council. So it's not as bad as what people make it out to be, but it's very, very, very rewarding, and it's the best thing that I've ever done in my life. I mean, I've opened my business. I've had a great, successful time of that, building a great team there. I think when you can actually truly make a difference to people's lives and make a difference for them, that when they go home and they turn their lights off and they go to bed and they're sitting there and all their worries are, how am I going to fix the mould that's in the wall, or what am I going to do when I get kicked out of my house next week and I don't have nowhere to go? You can come to people like me and the people like that want to apply to be councillors, and you can make a real difference. So if you're looking for something that's going to make you feel good and you've got a bit of extra time, please consider it, because if you don't, then all we're going to find ourselves is gaps across the country, and we want as many candidates as possible to be able to deliver the Reform UK strategy. And like you said, we need over 6,000 council seats will be up for grabs in May 2026, and there's a great opportunity for Reform to really push our agenda ahead of the national general elections, where we want to get Nigel into number 10. But if we build that solid foundation up first, that will then give us the platform to be able to deliver on Doge and deliver on the crime statistics and deliver on what people really want in their areas. And we've had some really, really great success across the country with reform-led councils, and I really look forward to seeing Basildon become fully turquoise and taking as many seats as possible. And if you are from Basildon and you are watching today, we could do with your help. So come and speak to us, come and put an application form in, and come have a chat, because we could do with as much experience as we can from all walks of life. I mean, I'm a business owner and I grew up in the system. But then we've got Councillor Sarah Shields, who is my deputy. She's a trainee nurse. So you don't necessarily have to be someone that's been in politics or been in business. If you've got great life experience and you love Nigel and you love what Reform does and you want to make your country great again, just put your hand up, because we will help you along the way. We'll give you the tools, we'll give you the resources, and we will make you a successful councillor. That is a promise.
There we go, everyone. So I think we could, if you're watching, give this man a round of applause, because what he's doing, honestly, mate, I love what you're doing. I love your story. I love your tenacity. I love the fact that you just keep plodding away, doing what you think is right. And that's exactly it. We need people to help you. We need more people across this country to stand up against what they're seeing and actually make a difference. So please go and help Sam, guys. You've obviously seen what he's experienced. Give him some support. And mate, thank you ever so much for your words today. Thank you very much for your time. And I think a lot of people off the back of this are going to say, yeah, do you know what? Let's do something about it.
I really hope so, because there's so much potential for us to be able to turn our country round. And if we don't, well, then we're going to have another 4, 5, 10, 15 years of the same. And I just don't think the country's got it in it no more. We do not have the time. We do not have the financial. We do not have the economic side of things. And we definitely don't have the patience anymore. So if you really want to make a difference, please put your hand up to be a councillor. And you don't necessarily have to be a councillor either, Bruce. Like, we have people that help out voluntarily in our groups. Yep. We have our home squad that do with our letter writing and whatnot for us as well. So you don't necessarily have to go out and knock on doors. You can literally be a part of our volunteer group in our branches. And with over 400 branches across the country, We're having a good time of it. We've got some great people in there, and I just want to say a big thank you, because I can stand here and talk all day. I can stand at the lectern in the council meetings and deliver the reform agenda. But actually, I want to say thank you to the volunteers, because without you guys, A, I would never have been elected, and B, we'd never get anybody else elected. So thank you very much to all of our supporters, our volunteers, and those that have donated to our branch events, whether that be monies, prizes, and that sort of thing as well. Without you guys, reform doesn't exist, and there would be no way we can get Nigel into number 10. But more of the same, please. Thank you very much for your support, and yeah, up the reform.
Sam, do you want AMP in the future?
Well, I'll leave that down to Nigel. I will always do what I can to put my best foot forward, to be the best representative for my local area. And if the party believes that I am the man to be an MP for Basildon and Billericay, then I would definitely go for it. But it's all up to the boss and the senior team there. Hopefully, I can show over the next few years the type of person that I am, and the type of person that will support the party and be a great MP. Whether it will happen or not, that is down for them to make that decision. But I'm always open for future endeavours.